Happy Monday to everyone on Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper Wes Reynolds. Fun week in the WNBA ahead after a fun weekend. A lot of crazy outcomes, but that's just another day in the W because it has been a wild season on many fronts. Wes, good to be with you, my man. I know you had a golf winner this weekend as well.
We did. Kirk Kitayama gets home for us in Minneapolis at the 3M. So good to have that. And was also following some of the WNBA card, big card on Sunday while I was paying attention to the golf. And you're right, a lot of bizarre results that we saw, especially on Sunday.
The Lynx suffered their first home loss of the season, if I'm not mistaken. And the Connecticut Sun is a 6.5-point home dog, bet to 5.5. I was heavy on them. I wrote about it in the New York Post. I wish we had a show here on Bet Rivers. Gave it away as my free play in my Discord. And a home dog wins by 31. What a performance. Just a classic handicapping spot that was terrible for the Valkyries. I can't believe the league scheduled this game. And they're a team I probably will be looking to fade, especially anytime they're in the favorite role, although they covered as a favorite on Friday. So they got home on Friday, but not on Sunday. Road was home, things like that. But yeah, that was a wild outcome, one of many over the past few days. And one of the games also, this was on Saturday, the Sparks won at the Liberty, but Brianna Stewart got hurt. 101-99 game. Rakia Jackson with the game winner at the buzzer. 200 points scored. Fun game. And now the Liberty are back on the court tonight. Sparks, this line was way skewed, but they've ripped off, I believe, 5 straight. So the yes, no to make the playoffs. A lot of teams in the mix, right? Valkyries are sliding. Mystics sliding a little bit. Maybe the Aces are sliding a little bit. And Sparks have entered the chat. So have a couple other teams at least lurking. So we shall see how that plays out. But tonight, the Liberty are 8-point road favorites in Dallas against a Wings team that did not have Paige Beckers in their last game. I don't know if it's tanking, but they didn't play her. Ogunbowale shot a bunch, as I'm sure everyone's surprised to hear. But Liberty, even without Brianna Stewart, are 8-point road favorites. 172.5 is your total. We know Dallas does not play any defense whatsoever. Liberty off a loss here. I have a tough time. I lean Liberty, but I got to know the status of Beckers.
Yeah, first meeting of the season, by the way, for these two teams. And you're right, when you talked about the Liberty on Saturday, Brianna Stewart hits her first basket and gets hurt like 2 minutes into the game, leg injury. She is not going to go. I'm not sure the long-term prognosis. I don't think she's going to be out indefinitely, but certainly not going to play tonight. And then with Dallas yesterday, no Paige Beckers, and the Aces were able to go on the road and get a win. So, looking at this game, I would lean a little bit over. The market certainly, I think, is anticipating that they think Paige is going to play, and they know that Dallas defensively has not been anything special, to say the least. So you've seen a little bit of movement to 172, 172 and a half. I still think maybe there's a little bit of runway to go over, and I'm expecting if Paige gets officially announced, you'll see still a little bit of an uptick, even though I think it's mostly accounted for here. So I was trying to figure out a way maybe to attack this from a prop angle, because I actually did have a couple props. One cost me and one benefited me. I had Stewart over points because I thought it was going to be a bounce back game from a bad game Friday night against the Mercury, where I think she only had 5, and she got off to a good start. Hit her first 3. We talked about the fact that her 3-point shooting has dropped significantly this season. And so it's like, okay, maybe this is one of those games. Then she gets hurt. But it did benefit Natasha Cloud, who ended up being a big scorer. I think scored 22 in that loss on Saturday, 101-99. So Sabrina, by the way, had 30 on Saturday. So her point prop has been bet significantly, or moved significantly at least, to the over. I think there's still some 21.5, but you got to pay some pretty significant juice. So call it 22.5. I kind of think maybe Natasha Cloud and some kind of combo here could be worth at least a look. Points, rebounds, I believe at Bet Rivers is 14.5 minus 132. If you want to go points assist, that would be 17.5, and that's around 118, I believe right now. So all the Natasha Cloud, because I think scoring in the backcourt certainly has to go from somewhere. And the Liberty really, they have good role players, but they don't really have a lot of big scorers off the bench like Johannes and Harrison, Gardner, Burke. They kind of give you what they give you, right? Some games there's a little spike, but they're not consistent scoring punch off the bench. So this is going to be the starters playing very heavy minutes like they did on Saturday night.
Okay, so let's take a step away. We'll table props for now. You're saying the price in your eyes is marked as if Page is playing at 8. So they're still without Stewart on the road, laying 8, and the Wings are at full strength with the Gumbawale, Beckers, some of the guards they signed, like Quinterly and things like that. It's that feels like a big number with no Brianna Stewart. Do you think that that is priced appropriately?
Yeah, it's probably a little recency bias because you have the quote unquote fallen hero theory that's going to be first game without Stewie on the road, even against a bad team. We got to step it up. And then also the fact that the Wings did lose 106-80 to an Aces team that I think has probably been the biggest disappointment in the league. Maybe the expectations were too high. Yeah, like they finally brought Jewel Lloyd off the bench though, and she scored 20, by the way, in that game. Probably arguably her best game of the season because they started Kirsten Bell instead. But you give up 106 like they did, and the Aces were probably due a good 3-point spike game because they shot so poorly against Indiana and also against Minnesota on Friday night. So they hit 15 of 36, but this Wings defense and that Wings Valkyries game where the Wings lost, they actually led at the half and they lost. That was a high scoring second half. So we know this defense is just brutal. And I still think Dallas is trying to figure it out here. Who their rotations are going to be. And Arike took a bunch of shots. Carrington took a bunch of shots yesterday. Not as much from JJ Quinterly, which surprised me a little bit. So I think this is probably an appropriate number at 8.
So you think New York would be a double-digit favorite with Stewart in this situation? Because you mentioned Carrington. Carrington's back as well for Dallas. It's a big number.
It is a big number. I mean, I'm not saying I want to lay it necessarily. I think that this is a little bit of a tricky spot. What the Aces were laying 8.5 yesterday. That was the closing number when we knew Paige Beckers was going to be out. So
Right.
if she plays, and I think that they had that situation a couple weeks ago. I think the Aces with Paige on the floor were 6 at Dallas, like about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So how many points do you value the Liberty over the Aces? I certainly think that they're 2 points better than the Aces. So that's why I think 8. Now this is without Stewie. So like if Stewie were playing, I do think this would probably be about 10 because I would value the Liberty over the Aces 4 on a neutral. So yeah, I think 8 probably is kind of splitting the difference here.
I know a really sharp guy. I texted him. We talked this morning. He really likes the Liberty off a loss. He thinks it's a good spot. He doesn't care if Stewie's out. He thinks they hammer him. He thinks the Wings defense stinks. I I think the Liberty kind of stink in some way. Sorry. Like I think Sabrina on defense, I think they got their issues when they're shorthanded.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't think they and again, I say this with a quarterback injury, any sport. Losing Stewart a few minutes into the game, very different than coming into this game without Stewie, right? Like that's a shock to the system. Your whole game plan's thrown out, things like that. Now you can at least prepare, have pieces in place strategically. And I think New York's going to look better than they did when Stewart went out of the game a few minutes into it. So I do expect that. It's like a quarterback backup has to enter mid game with the game plan and then has a full week of practice the following week. It's going to look a little sharper. So I think New York will be sharp. They should score, but I think Sabrina. Now, I'm not going to play the side. I don't. I think New York likes to push, so I'm with you in the over would be a play I would look. I think we're going to see some points. I hate relying on the libs the Wings because Agubawale can just go like 1 for 7 shooting threes like she did in her last game,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or she can have a monster first half like she did Friday at Golden State. She's a little of the wild card. So I actually look at top point score. What do you think of Agubawale plus 480?
I could see that. I think that she, we know that she's a chucker, and that she will absolutely, take her fair volume. Now Carrington took a volume yesterday because she had been off the bench, and then she got put in the starting lineup. So, it could make a little bit of sense. I've seen a little bit of movement like on the John Kell Jones rebounding under. So I'm wondering if that means, okay, she's going to focus on being more of a scorer tonight. So she's at the same price at about plus 480. I clearly don't want to buy Sabrina off having over 30 on Saturday, and she's odds on here at minus 110. I don't want to take Paige and risk the fact that was that a real injury or was that okay? We're just going to rest her a little bit, and maybe they're seeing what's happened with Caitlin and how much she played last year and the nagging injuries, various injuries she's had all season. So maybe Dallas is being extra cautious. I don't think they're necessarily tanking. They're not very good anyway, and they have just the pieces right now just don't seem to fit with this group. So Arike or probably John Kell Jones, even though I think Tasha Cloud is going to have to score a little bit more for the Liberty tonight.
Cloud is 15-1. John Quell also 480. I like Arike because you do get the chance that Paige is out, right? If that happens, then she's going to really be chucking. So I'm going to do 0.1 unit. I usually do on the straight wagers of minus 110. I'll do a half unit. So I'll do 0.1 for the plus 480. I think there's value. I think it should have been like 3-1. I know Paige has been scoring more, but Paige racked up a lot of those points gains when Arike was out. Paige is perfectly comfortable deferring and things like that, like we saw Friday night when they played together at Valhalla. So I think Arike is going to be gunning, and I do think Sabrina is going to score without Stewie, and she could go over 23 against this Dallas team. But if there's balance with Cloud, with Johannes gets you 12 or something like that, John Quell goes for 20. I think Arike could go for 30 and they lose by 10 in a high scoring game. So that's the only play I have right now. I kind of want to come back to the Liberty, but I'm just not going to pull the trigger. No need to force it. I'll just do my 0.1 unit on a Gumbawala. You mentioned some other props that caught your eye.
Yeah.
You were toying with some combo props with Cloud, things like that. We know this Wings defense is going to be Swiss cheese. Anything catch your eye? I mean, a Gumbawala, I probably should be betting over 15.5 minus 115. She'll get the shot volume. I just need to know if Beckers is playing because let me put it this way. If Beckers is out and this line goes, I'd rather bet Ogunbowale over like 17.5 with Beckers out than I would 15.5 with her there. And if Beckers plays, maybe this goes to 14.5. I just rather know what the status is Beckers, and I'll take the adjusted number. I prefer the adjusted number with Ogunbowale.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm trying to think of how to use Cloud, who I think is going to score more now. She only averages like a little over 9 a game, but I do think she's going to have to score more. And I think you've got some young guards on this Dallas team that really I think struggles kind of figuring out the defensive assignments. Really, not just the pace.
Sure.
It's just they struggle figuring out defensive assignments. So. Looking at this, I am going to look. I'm trying to see what I think maybe has a little bit more value here. Over 17.5 points and assists. I think at minus 118. Yeah, that's where I think I'm going to look here. I may end up on the over for the game as well. I just don't know if Beckers is going to play, but Natasha Cloud. I think because everybody, the Sabrina props, by the way, have already moved huge. Of course, the star player on the team. So I'm looking at like the points props, and I'm just looking, surveying the market. The Bet Rivers price as I scroll over is, I think it's 21.5 and pretty heavily juiced to the over. And by the way, there's multiple options here. Like you could play over 20.5 at minus 157. It's 21.5 minus $1.30. I'm seeing higher in some places, and then 22.5 you can lay just minus 108. So I would lean the over, but I think that's probably priced right now. The market's probably reacted properly on Sabrina.
Okay, good stuff. So you'll play Cloud over 17.5 points plus assists. I like it, and I do think the over's the only way to play the total. I'm going to wait on that as well. Just, Beckers is such a big part. Always want to remind you guys, if you like what you hear on our show, sign up for the newsletter. Get exclusive tips and the free Insider magazine. Sign up for free at bettingweeklystudios.com. And we always encourage you guys to get involved in the conversation, join the convo, as we say, in the comment section. Some good activity in the previous hour. Betting Weekly Hardball had a ton of interaction right now for this show. PD says, let's go, boys. And sorely need some W wins. Yeah, we all do. We all want wins. I want winners, as Singletary would say. So there's the other game in the W tonight. Pretty compelling matchup. If you're into betting, like we all are, Connecticut Sun coming off a rare win. We mentioned it, 30-point win. So just their fourth win of the season. They are now 4-20. Storm, 12-point road favorites at Connecticut. Over under 157.5. Now, this Seattle team, we've talked about it a bunch on this show. They tend to play with their food. They're coming off a loss in DC where they lost by 11. So they've lost 2 of their last 3. They've lost to Dallas and they've lost to the Mystics. They lost to Dallas at home. I know it was like the Wings' greatest game ever, but still, that was without Skylar Diggins, but still inexcusable. So this Storm team's a double-digit favorite. Updates just moved to 11.5, and the total's now 157. I lean Storm, but this is a much different. Like they just killed the Sky without Angel Reese and Ariel Atkins. This Sun team actually has some competent pieces now that Marina Mabry's back. So you have Tina Charles and Mabry, right? Solid players, good players, all-star caliber-ish, fringe all-star caliber-ish. Then you have some of these players that are, Morrow's playing better. The rookie's getting her legs under her. Bria Hartley's been playing better as well. They're not as incompetent as they were earlier this season, especially when they were 1-7 or whatever during Mabry's absence. This team has some decent players that were forced to develop some game while Mabry was out. And, they're okay. Sanaya Rivers, I love. Her athleticism's off the charts. Great rebounder. They're 12-12 against the spread. Okay. So the great equalizer is ATS, and that's what they are. So 4-20 overall, 12-12. I can't get involved though. They're off a big win, and now's not the time to bet them.
Yeah, and I ended up being on Connecticut yesterday, and the market certainly moved there. It went to like 4.5 because I think it was just Golden State early game on the East Coast, early West Coast time, and role reversal when you have a team that's a dog that's not used to being a favorite, even though they did just cover at home on Friday. That was just a bad roll. And I think that role reversal sometimes can play in. And Connecticut played a good game yesterday. A couple props that I might be looking at. I think the runway. I missed the boat. I should have laid 9.5 in the overnight with the Storm because I think that's the right move. And now you've seen as high. I think it's come back a little bit once it reached 12, and now you're seeing some 11.5, including at Bet Rivers. Under's been hit a little bit too, 159.5 to 57.5, and that's probably right. We've seen Seattle have some low-scoring games, including Saturday against Washington, where they took a defeat, but in couple props here, maybe Marina Mabry under 13.5. Now, she did, by the way, she did clear yesterday, barely. She cleared and ended up with 15. This is her third game back from the injury. She did not go over in the first game with LA. At 11.5 went to 7. And then it went to 13.5 and she cleared. So you get the same number here. Marina Mabry under 13.5 points because I think Seattle is a good defensive team. They can slow the tempo. They do have very physical guards. So I thought 13.5. I think, maybe that's a little generous, especially with the total going down a little bit and Seattle getting bet. That puts in a blowout to play. It brings that into play that Seattle could win by 25 and maybe she doesn't get the minutes that she certainly got. So Mabry under 13.5 points. And then on the rebounding side, on the other side for Seattle, Ogumake. Now you got to lay a little bit. And I'm just looking at how she has done recently. She has not been clearing this very frequently, Ogumake. I think she had like most of her points, by the way, in the first half and then got held to 2 in the second half. The rebounding is at 6.5, and she has failed to clear this in the last 3. So maybe this is a buy low. The market certainly believes so. Ogumake over 6.5 rebounds. I think that's a little bit of a tag, minus 143 at Bet Rivers.
So you raised two props that I think bring up interesting matchup situations. Is Gabby Williams going to be the assigned primary defender on Mabry?
I would think so.
Yeah, because that'll make life miserable. I mean, they'll do high ball screens. Diggins will switch on her, but Mabry's weakness is her athleticism. Okay, she's a set shooter, does not have much quickness. She can get blanketed by the right defender. She can get absolutely shut down with length. Gabby Williams would like shut her out basically if there was no screens allowed or something like that. So I see what you're saying with that because the Storm are off a loss, so they're going to have their attention. And the Storm, after losing to the Wings, bounced back and beat the Sky by 38 or something. So there's a lot to like with Seattle in that regard. So the domino effect is Gabby Williams. You're right. Mabry. Now they don't play again until Friday, so there's maybe they'll play the full minutes if it's a relatively competitive game. You mentioned NECA. Is she going to be guarding Tina Charles, or is that going to be Maglador?
I think it might be Ezzy, because
Okay. I agree.
because you know, and we know Ezzy not a big scorer. She just has not been able to give them the consistent scoring punch. So you would think it's NECA, and in terms of the guards, Skylar, and because they've been messing around a little bit with the starting lineup at guard. When Skylar missed, it was Mitchell and Wheeler. Wheeler, I believe, has been starting more, even though they really like her, I think, more as like the sixth woman off the bench to give them some energy and some scoring punch. But yeah, I think NECA, and you're seeing a little bit of movement in her points prop as well, that this is probably one of those games like where they got a loss, and and you've seen that sometimes
Oh, it's a great spot to back Seattle. I mean, I would argue that Storm money line's like free money.
well, and you've seen the spots where like you have certain star players, like sometimes there's Aja Wilson like smash spots when they're off a loss, and she's just going to have like a huge game the next time out. I think that's
Right.
kind of the same thing with NECA here. So
Really, because NECA's she's on the back nine. Like
sure, like she doesn't do this.
she lets the game come to her. She's almost pacing herself for the playoffs.
Yeah, well, you never really see her have like the stupidly big 30-point games like Aja
Right.
Wilson can have, but I think she's relatively consistent. I'm just looking at her points here. The only one she didn't go over was against Chicago, and that was 10. But they had like beaten Chicago by 1,000,000 in that game, so that was the byproduct of minutes. Last time these teams played, it was 16 that she had against the Sun. So I'm not going to do the points prop because I think 16 and a half is right. But I think probably the rebounding here would be the way to go to attack her.
Okay. Okay. So over's the only side you'd play there. Anything on the game? Like, I mean, I know it sounds so stupid. The money line seems so. I'm hoping like the Sun starts strong or whatever, and it's like you can get like minus 400 in game or something like that. I think the Storm win this by double digits, but it might be right around the number. This feels like yesterday's Fever game where they're going to be double digits the entire game. Sky can hang around. The largest lead gets to 15. The lowest deficit gets to 6. One of those games, and it lands 15 or 11 or 9. I think the Storm are going to take care of their business, but the Sun are more competent. Mabry will shoot big logo threes, but they just don't. So the Sun, there are only two ways to compete: is Tina Charles going off in the mid range, in the post, a la like Patrick Ewing in this peak, and then Mabry going off. But the bigs defend too well for Seattle to let Charles go off. They just get a hand up. They're going to, the length of Magador and everything. And then I think Gabby Williams and everyone, I do think there's just going to be limitations. And the Storm first half line, not a bad option. That has my attention as well. So, gosh, it's tough, man. This Sun off a win, too, off a big win.
And we know that.
What do you think of the first half line?
Well, we know that Golden State has been one of the better teams defensively, and Connecticut shot 53% yesterday, 12 of 29, by the way, from the three. So there's got to be some regression. You would think, even though it's short term, it's just a day after, but haven't seen really a lot of movement in the first half because the first half usually comes out day of game. They usually don't have that overnight. So 6.5, pretty much market wide.
Let me remind you, this was the matchup. Remember, the Storm had some big wins on the road. Buzzer beater in Atlanta. They go to New York, beat the Liberty. Then they lose at at Connecticut without Mabry, and the Sun were plus 1,200 on the money line. It was like a morning Sunday summer camp game, and then they beat them the next game by 14. That's a little interesting. The fact that they've recently played and the Sun won outright even without Mabry.
Yeah, it is. But that's kind of just been Seattle. I don't think you want to put necessarily too much into that. That's just kind of been, how they perform. You're going to get weird, wonky results. I think in this league that can spook you at least a little bit because the one you brought up on July 9th where they lost by 10, but they've tended to rebound well off loss. Remember, after that loss, then they beat Connecticut by 14 the next game.
Right.
Then they lost to Washington, and then they beat Golden State. Then they lost to the Wings and went to Chicago and won by like 1,000 against the Sky, which it seems like everybody's doing lately. But they've been trading money basically. I think the win one, lose one, 4-4 in their last 8. So this is certainly going to be a response for Seattle, but 6.5, I think probably priced right.
Okay. Yeah, I want to pull the trigger because I think it's such a good spot to back the Storm, but the market represents that. Any opinion on the total? Do you think the Sun Sun are really limited offensively? Any team totals maybe?
Lean under for the game
Yeah, me too.
at 57 and a half. It has certainly moved in that direction. Still, I think some 77 for the first half. I would certainly lean under. I may look to play like perhaps in game or something like that later tonight, but I think that that's the right move here. I just think regression from Connecticut, and we've seen Seattle. They can be very good defensively. Held Chicago to 57, even though they got beat on Saturday. Mystics only score 69. So you've seen some low opponent totals. Golden State had 58 on them. Connecticut in that revenge spot had 65. So now I'm going to try to click over on team total here, and it's about where 72.5, 71.5 actually juiced the over at Bet River. So yeah, nothing for me there. I don't want to force something.
Okay. Quick look at tomorrow's games. You and I are both off the show tomorrow. The next time you and I are back on this program, I'm back Wednesday with Albert, and you and I are back Thursday and Friday. So we're going to have a lot of betting weekly fast break time together, 3 days together. But I do want to just glance because it'll be Sarah and Albert tomorrow. They'll have great insight, great reaction, great previews. But, early look, more heads, put together. Valkyrie's off that beatdown in Connecticut, catching 8.5 in Atlanta. Any interest there?
I want to take the Valkyries there because I think that this is a bad
Atlanta off a big win as well.
And this is Atlanta too, coming back from winning 2 on the road at Phoenix and at Minnesota. Not easy places to win. And now you come back for just one game before you got to go back on the road to face Dallas, and then I think you get a couple game homestand, but a lot more road games here in late July and in early August for Atlanta than there certainly are home games. It'd be Golden State or nothing for me. I just think that was just a bad performance, and it was a tough spot. You played late on Friday night, by the way. So you were the second game of the Ion doubleheader on Friday night, and then had to play the first game on Sunday morning. So I just thought a tough spot. We know Kayla Thornton's still out because look at the shooting. Tiffany Hayes, 0 of 8, was bad. Burton only 2 of 3, and some of that were that the minutes were down for them because it was such a blowout right away. So the starters all played like high teens, low 20 minutes. But I think the defense, like Natalie, will have their focus at least defensively from a dream team that likes to get up and down the floor. And I think it's a sell high spot on the Dream. They beat Minnesota. Now Minnesota did almost come back. They made it very interesting because they were up double digits late, and then it kind of got in the foul game and transition threes. But they got 22 out of Griner. You're not really getting those numbers out of BG. very often.
I
So
think she had 17 in the first half.
yeah,
So I guess the question is, the Valkyries' performance, you can throw it out. That's fine. That was just a horrible spot, like we mentioned. But they've also lost Thornton for the year, their best player. So this Valkyries profile that we've discussed all year, great in the underdog role, great. They're down their best player, their all-star. So what do they have with this
right.
team to keep this within 8.5 other than the spot? If we're going to bet the spot, we should bet Valkyries first quarter, first half. Now,
Yeah, probably.
that
Yeah,
those were my picks on Friday, both lost, but then they cover the game. So what do I know? But situationally, the line value feels like it's early against the Dream, who are shorthanded. Remember, we should mention Ryan Howard's out, but do the Valkyries have the size to compete with the Dream, download things like that?
that remains to be questioned. I think Fact Benlay, is athletic
Very good.
and certainly can have very good games. But I'm curious to see what Golden State does because Nikazi's got to figure out a little bit of the rotation. Kate Martin played more yesterday, but I don't know if that was like garbage time minutes. Like, because she has been like nowhere for this team. Like they haven't,
Very strange.
yeah, they haven't played her at all. I'm like, she can at least provide 3-point shooting for this team that they very much need. And I don't know why Kate has not been playing. Salon had a little bit of a down game yesterday, but she had a very good game Friday night. Like she's the one that I think is really going to have to step up for this team, where they're going to have to just get
I
they're just have to going to have to get more results out of her. I know she's a rookie, but they're going to have to get a lot more out of her. I think while Thornton being out the rest of the year, and she might be kind of the breakout player. I think here. And keep in mind, Billings has also been out, I believe, since the 16th, and she's somebody that contributes off the bench. But I still the spot screams Valkyries here, without a doubt.
It does. I mean, obviously, we're both sleeping on it and everything. I think the first quarter, first half lines are how I would like to play. 8.5 is a big number, so you like that for the game. And when you get lower in the first half, first quarter, you're only getting like one possession plus 2.5, things like that. So it gets a little stomach churning in that regard. I'd look at Zandolfini as well. I think she's so solid. So props there, but it's a fade of Atlanta. Maybe it is team total first quarter under, something like that, where they just are just going through the motions, so to speak. Another game tomorrow that I think is going to be awesome is the Las Vegas Aces visit the Sparks. At Vegas, 3-point road favorite, 172.5. And this Sparks team's won 5 straight, scoring at least 90 in all 5. So the offense is picking up, and it's not even just Plum, it's everyone else, right? That's how you score 90 plus. So there's a lot to like. You mentioned the Aces earlier, mixing up their lineup. Becky Hammond's trying different rotations. Kristen Bell plays hard. She's willing to mix it up. So is Nalissa Smith. So there's more toughness now. I like the option of Jewel Lloyd coming off the bench. Maybe you can give the lift and not ball hog away from 2 players that are better in Jackie Young and Asia Wilson. But the Sparks taking care of business, but not exactly playing the best teams. They beat Connecticut twice.
Mm-hmm.
They did beat Liberty, but that was losing Britt Stewie a couple minutes in the game. Then they beat the Mystics twice. This was around the All-Star break too, so there was a little break in there. I can't bet the Aces. No way I can bet them road chalk, but I do think it's probably the right side. Would you look at the over? It's a big number though.
Yeah, I don't want to bet the Sparks here necessarily. Like just because I feel like it's kind of the peak of the market on them. Because they played with the weak sisters. Now you're playing, even though the Aces are down. The Wash Vegas Aces, as we call them, but they're still, I think, a better team than the Sparks. I think this is the right number. And you wonder, the Sparks at home have been terrible this year. They're 3-8. Now that's before they played their best ball of the season,
Right.
pretty much here. I do like what the Aces did in terms of the rotation, bringing Lloyd off the bench. I thought much more effective to bring her off the bench and maybe play her with Aaliyah Nye, who we've spoken highly of, who has some potential, I think, for that team. At least you got some young player that has a little bit of potential, because the problem is the Aces, just the guards have not been good. I think Lloyd playing with Gray has just been terrible. And I think that they finally made the right move there to put Lloyd off the bench. But I don't know if I want to. I don't know if one game is enough to convince me. Okay, this is permanent, and this is what the doctor ordered. And long term, I think it's going to be a better move for them. But that's still a lot to buy in with just one game playing a bad defensive team like Dallas. So I'm not wanting to buy the aces here. But I don't know if I want the sparks. I think that this could be a dose of reality for them.
It's a fair point. Fair point. Another game on the docket. Not exactly barn burner, but all tickets cash the same, as we like to say. The Chicago Sky visiting the Mystics. Angel Reese has missed a couple games. Mystics laying a touchdown here, 157.5 is your over under. My observation from yesterday with the Sky, they were in really bad scheduling spots prior to yesterday, facing with when they play without Angel Reese, because they are also missing Ariel Atkins and Onion Wary for some of those games as well. And also they were facing good teams off a loss. So they were great scheduling spots, and they got blown out by the Storm. They got blown out by another team. Then they go into Indiana, and we know teams take it easy when they're supposed to cruise. And that Indiana defense took it easy, and the Sky got a lot of points. And they're starting to figure out how to score. They're going to run through Bantam. They're going to run through Rebecca Allen. And even some of the others got their points. So I think the Mystics will be hungry for a win, but I don't think their defense. I'm looking at the over here. How do you feel about
I
this?
could see that too. And you look at the recent scores for the Sky in this 5 game losing streak. They lose by after they had upset Minnesota, they lose by 13 at home to the Lynx. Then Atlanta beats them in that day game 86-49. Then they get blown out at Minnesota again 91-68, and then Seattle 95-57, and then the Fever yesterday 93-78. So clearly something's up with the defense when you're allowing 93, 95, 91, 86, 91. So it would be over or nothing for me on the total. I
The
do.
Mystics can push. They push and score.
Yeah, they do, and they've got some. We've talked about we love their young core, Kiki and Sonia Citron, and just a lot of really good young players. Lucy Olson off the bench,
Dykes, I love too.
Sykes, a lot of young players mixed with a couple veterans off that bench. That Mystics team, I think, is a long-term buy. Maybe not for this year. We'll see if they can just get into the playoffs, but they're a long-term buy. But this is Mystics off a win, not off a loss here, and I think that's an important point. So I'm not necessarily endorsing the Sky. I don't want to lay the Mystics necessarily here, which what I think, I don't want to say top of the market, but certainly a higher peak than they.
We have some breaking news. Sorry, Wes, to interrupt you. I'll
Okay,
just tell you because it's part of Angel Reese listed as probable now. So likely to return. Onion Wary still questionable. Haley Van Lith, if it matters, questionable as well. But if Angel Reese returns, the offense opens up. I
yeah.
think Cardoso stinks. Can I complain about her again?
Well, I just
Because
don't think
that's all I seemingly do.
I don't think that this is the right team, and I don't think this is the right fit for her necessarily. I just
The
think.
game's changing in front of her. She's
Yeah.
worthless.
Well, and the Sky just have done a horrible job of putting together this roster. Like, they don't mesh at all. But Reese coming back, we'll see how she is off the back injury, but she was playing some of her best ball in very early July. Because remember, they won a couple of those games. They beat Dallas, and then they beat Minnesota. And then these were competitive losses. Competitive loss to Minnesota. Competitive loss at Washington, when she smacked the clipboard coming into the timeout. Win at LA, competitive loss at Golden State, another win over LA. This is going back into June. So all of a sudden, this team just fell the freak apart, with those 5 blowout losses here in mid-July, and currently on that 5 game losing streak. So, like I said, I don't want to buy the Mystics at the top. So it would be Sky or pass, and the Sky are a really tough team to bet on right now. But and we are seeing movement, by the way, as we speak.
Reese playing changes everything.
Yeah, if you want to grab the 7.5, try to find it. I think Bet River still has a 7, but I'm starting to see some 6.5 show. So if you want to
I
grab
would grab
that,
7 at Bet Rivers if you
that's
can,
that's
if you're watching
that's what
live.
I am doing.
Okay.
That's what I'm
I
doing.
love the over. I love the over. I 157 halves a buy for me. Looking at the market, it's starting to trickle up. I'd take whatever it is right now, 158, 59. That's fine. I know Angel Reese has the me bounds and the missed shot. She's a good passer. She facilitates the offense. Her energy is really good. They feed off that. She is a galvanizing force for the Sky.
Yeah,
She's a team leader. She's a team
and
leader, even despite being age
and
23.
she's probably going to
So
be, and I usually don't like to play a player first game off an injury return, but she's probably going to be a little bit pissed off because it was what was it at the Sky, the Barbie Day yesterday, and she couldn't play, and then her nemesis, at least in terms of the Twitterverse, Caitlin Clark. And her team was there, and Caitlin's signing all the autographs and running for mayor there, at least in the arena in Chicago. So I think Angel might have a little bit of an edge in this game, the first game back. Just my opinion.
okay, so for me, official play over, let's call it 158. That's where this is headed. It's overjuiced, whatever. I'm okay. I'm not trying to pick off stale numbers or anything. I just think that the matchup stylistically really favors an over. So I'll make that an official play. I have the Enrique for 0.1 unit. You're on the Natasha Cloud over points plus assists. Anything else before we say goodbye?
That'll do it. Put me down Sky for 7 tomorrow because it's 7 at Bet Rivers. I have grabbed
Okay.
I'm grabbing a 7.5 as we speak
Okay.
elsewhere, but it's 7's better than 6.5 though, so I still think it's a square number.
Yeah, I do too. I think this Mystics team, they're a nice story. They're fine, but they're not like super reliable. This game could get hairy if they don't defend Banham well. I really like Rachel Banham's game. I wish her and Mabry had like more speed or athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
They're just they got to
Yep.
do a lot of things to get their shot open when they're guarded by the Gabby Williams of the world. It's really difficult, but I love watching them shoot.
Let me also go at the Mabry under 13 and a
Okay.
half points as well.
All right, you're on the books. Under 13.5. That's going to be a little bit of a sweat. She's not afraid to pull from the logo.
No, she's not.
And she can drive and get some fouls. But you're right. With that length and athleticism, she's going to have a miserable time tonight with Storm off a loss. Okay, that's going to do it for us. As I mentioned, Sarah and Albert will be in tomorrow. I'll be back Wednesday. On that show, I believe I'm with Albert. Yeah, and then Wes and I Thursday and Friday right here on Betting Weekly Fast Break, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Don't forget Betting Weekly Hardball as well. That's 2 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Wes is going to be on that show Wednesday, and I'm back on that show after today on Thursday. So special thanks to Wes Reynolds, everyone behind the scenes doing a great job with the graphics, producing, directing, make it all look good. Wes and I just have to talk some sports. And I'm Doug Kezirian. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Good luck to everyone out there.